Okay, so welcome back to everybody who was on the introduction to Predictive Analytics. I'm glad you came back for more. And also welcome to any newcomers who want to discover about customer analytics. I have an agenda here. I'm going to first of all talk about the customer challenge, and you'll find out what that's all about shortly, and then how you can use predictive analytics to address that challenge. This includes a demo using SPSS modeler. I've chosen a particular use case that I'm going to walk you through. We'll come back at the end and hopefully summarize what we've done. And of course, as Jesse said, please feel free to put your questions in the chat window as I go through this presentation, and we'll address our questions and answers at the end. Okay, so let's get started. So the customer challenge, I think every organization hopefully has customers, otherwise I'm not convinced they are an organization. But really the challenge for any business is, how do you grow your business? How do you acquire your customers? How do you grow those customers and get the most value out of them? And then once you've got them, you want to retain, particularly the profitable customers, you want to retain them for longer. So our challenge is to be able to grow our customers in the broadest sense. Attracting a new customer is 5 times the cost of an existing one. So think about that. So when you acquire a customer, you want to make sure you acquire the right customer. So where the right customer is one that's going to be a profitable customer for you. So you've got to find ways to make sure you're looking for the right customer. Today, a customer has the ability to research extensively before he or she purchases. I'm sure any one of us who are going to buy a television will spend some time on the internet examining all the different products that are available and then making a purchasing decision, probably based on reviews and inputs from others and people we've never spoken to in our lives before, but they are far more interesting to us than the marketing material that comes from organizations. So a company can differentiate itself by having the ability to ensure that they are present in all the channels with meaningful message during this time of research. And even maybe more important, the ability to determine when the customer is actually ready to make a purchase decision. I always wonder how Amazon knows that I'm about ready to purchase, but they do. With business analytics, organizations can understand and anticipate customer behaviors and needs, and then effectively segment and target those customers to deliver the right offer at the right time through the right channel. The top 20% of customers generate 150% of a customer's profit. So once we've got a customer in, it's really important to focus on those high-value customers. That means we need to know who that high-value customer really is. And then once we've got them, we don't want to lose these customers, particularly the profitable ones. As you can see, organizations achieve 30% increase in value through a 10% improvement in retention. So losing customers is very expensive. So spending time to understand who your customers are, why they might defect, and if they are going to defect, may add significant value to your business. So to kind of understand the future, I think it's always a valuable lesson in life to take a look to the past and see how things were done and see how they've changed. So I'm sure most of us, if not all of us on this call, can remember 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know that I've got any high school students on the call. But in those days, our customer experience framework was a very simple one. We bought products, we used them, and we called customer support if we needed them. There really was very little information available to us to educate ourselves on the product or the service that we were considering to buy. In truth, many consumers were a captive audience in those long days ago, reliant on the marketing and sales message that companies shared with us about their products and services. Our world has changed. Today, the consumer has taken charge with a very big help from technology. enabling conversations between peers on a global level, sharing experiences in real time and to an audience of millions. Come back to my television purchase and consider the number of people that I'm, in quotes, talking to, finding inputs based on their reviews on the television product that I'm considering purchasing. Because information is available on any topic at any time, customers are much more knowledgeable about the products and services they are going to purchase, and with that, their expectations have changed. They now expect more from the companies that they deal with, and they expect not only superior products because they've hand-chosen them after all based on reviews, they also expect personalized interactions across all the channels they interact with within an organization. So, as a result, companies, they can no longer just compete on product alone, driving the need to differentiate to gain any kind of competitive advantage. They need to do a better job of managing their customers' expectations and delivering value when, where, and how the customer demands it. So this results in a much nicer and more colorful, at least, consumer experience framework that we have today. You'll notice there's still a lot of the purchase use pieces, but we've got a few other components that are now involved. We now have the research phase, and we also have an advocate phase, which is really all about talking about these products. And the companies need to be able to address the customer challenge of acquiring, growing, and retaining customers within the context of this framework. What I hope I can achieve today by the end of this 1-hour session is to describe how predictive analytics provide a course of action for an organization to take on this customer challenge. So here we go, taking on the challenge. Many of us, if not all of us on this phone call, are involved with analytics in some shape or form. And at the heart of all analytics is data. And indeed, customer analytics is no different. A key problem for many companies is data, whether it's volume, disparate sources, velocity, variety. Making sense of it all is a major problem. As we look to classify customer data, I've classified here in 4 particular segments on this slide. I'm going to focus on the bottom 2 quadrants for now. These 2 categories of descriptive and behavioral data, these are the traditional purview of something like a CRM system. Descriptive data is a lot to do with demographic type information, age, marital status, address, number of children, that sort of information. Whereas behavioral data is really transactional information. How much did a customer spend, what products they bought, whether they pay their bills on time, all of that type of transactional information about a customer. But these 2 types of data only give an organization half of the picture. To get a full 360-degree view of the customer, we need to add interaction data and attitudinal data, which I find very difficult to say. Attitudinal data can come from social media, so this is all about sentiment. You know, come back to my television again. I'm reading that one particular brand, somebody says this is not worth half the price. So I'm going to pay attention to that. I'm taking somebody else's sentiment and opinion into my consideration. So attitudinal data is very important for an organization to comprehend. Interaction data is also important, and this really can come from consider person-to-person interactions, such as a conversation between a call center representative and a customer, or from a person-to-system interaction, such as a browsing pattern on a website. The ability to collect, understand, and use these types of data is a true differentiator for companies today. So using analytics, organizations can understand and anticipate their customer behaviors and needs, and effectively segment and target those customers to deliver the right offer at the right time through the right channel to help acquire customers. When we move into the growth phase, organizations can maximize customer lifetime value through upsell and cross-sell activities, engaging their customer across multiple touch points throughout their life cycle. With this in mind, organizations need to harness the power of the customer's voice. In our world today, the customer voice has become very important to increase customer loyalty and retention, proactively prevent churn or attrition, another word, as well as turning satisfied customers into advocates. Think about my television. Analytics is about gathering actionable insights that will help organizations grow their customer base, increase their share of wallet, and retain the profitable customers. So now what I want to do is to start looking at ways to use predictive analytics to help us take on this customer challenge, starting with acquiring the ideal customer. By understanding which customers are most likely to purchase certain products or service, if we knew that, we could set up marketing programs that can be focused to obtain the highest possible response on your marketing investment. So we would begin and identify different customer segments based using operational and attitudinal information. And using Modeler, you can segment in as many ways as you can think of: value, behavior, demographics, attitude. All of these different segmentation approaches are available to you using Modeler. Once you've got a segmented view of your customer base, you can then create predictive profiles for each of those segments, and they may not be the same. Each segment might be quite different. You could identify which products or services customers in each segment are likely to want. Now we're making great progress. We've now got segments. We know what each segment, what we're going to harness, or what products we're going to pitch to each of these segments. Now we need to find out how do we find the right customers for each of these segments. We can use predictive models to determine what types of customers, based on our history that we've used before, to attract to each of these different customer segments. We can predict which marketing programs will generate the highest response using response modeling. And indeed, we can improve our conversion rates, in other words, turning a prospect into a customer with prospect surveys. And I can see two different opportunities there. Prior to your marketing program, you can send out a survey to prospects to ensure that your marketing message is hitting the mark you expect. And then even after the marketing campaign, you can send a survey to both those that you converted and those that you did not, and understand what worked and did not work, and then roll that back into your predictive profile for each segment for future activities. So using predictive analytics, you can build this strategy for acquiring the ideal customer. So now we've done all of that, we've had some success, we've now got some new customers. What we want to do now is to grow the customer lifetime value. After all, what we're here to do is to make more money for our company. We want to get the most out of each customer. The first transaction was great. We need to maximize the growth and increase our customer lifetime value. So we need to know not only what customers are most likely to want, we're also going to need to know how they will want it delivered. You can use predictive analytics to help develop a customer growth strategy. So this is the next strategy that will help ensure your customers are more satisfied with your service and reinforces their decision to buy from you again. So some of the things that you can do, you can look for discover product affinities. A modeler helps you perform this type of analysis. Customers often purchase products and services together or in certain sequences. By analyzing these market baskets, as they're called, you can offer customers appropriate additional products at just the right time. And I think this got a lot of press in the last few weeks through the NSA debacle. So I think probably all of us have heard those stories between beer and diapers and whatever other examples they came up with. But this market basket analysis helps you understand what products your customers buy together and can lead to improved product placement in retail stores, attractive bundling of products in both direct marketing and online offers, and more timely offers also. So not only does this increase revenue, it generally improves customer satisfaction and continues to maximize the customer lifetime value. I challenge all of you when you're purchasing on Amazon.com, it prompts you every time about other products that customers similar to you bought with the purchase you're about to make. So that's what's going on here. You can also predict how your segments are going to change over time. You know, when we acquired these customers, we created a segmentation model. We can apply data mining techniques to our historical sales data to show who buys what. We can then use that information as a foundation and add other related data to help predict which customer segments will become more valuable and which will become less valuable. Adding this kind of predictive intelligence to your customer growth strategy enables you to realistically plan growth for each different segment. Finally, you can also grow relationships by asking customers what they want. That seems so obvious, but it's amazing the number of organizations that actually don't do this. And part of the problem is the analysis of this information is burdensome. Not anymore. You've now got tools and technology that we're talking about here. SPSS survey and text analytics give you a great way to analyze this sort of information. Surveying customers to gain a better understanding of their needs and why they buy helps improve the customer growth strategy and, most importantly, maximize the customer lifetime value. So here we are. We have customers. They're growing. Life is good. I want to take a step back now and give you an example, a case study of an organization that was challenged with their acquisition and their marketing events, or marketing activities for their customers. And this is a bank, and as much data as they had, they felt that their marketing strategies were not tailored to particular preferences and buying patterns of their customers. They didn't have a way to segment their customer base, and they were spending a lot of money of marketing and getting poor results. So what they did was they bought IBM SPSS statistics and modeler, as well as Cognitive customer analytics, and they formed their segments like we just talked about. So they segmented their customer base. They came up with their profile of each segment. They marketed their products and services appropriately to each of those segments, and they found they improved worked on their marketing campaign along with using their P&L data to help optimize that, and they ended up with a return of investment that you can see here that blew it out of the water with a 600% ROI. They increased their marketing response rate by 3.1%, and they reduced their costs of both from a mailing cost perspective and a reduction in printing costs because they had a very focused marketing campaign. They had a targeted marketing for each of those segments they were working towards. So they used predictive analytics very successfully to help them acquire and grow their customer base. So now, as I move towards retaining and our loyal and profitable customers, we don't want to lose good customers. Studies have shown that customer acquisition costs 5 to 12 times more than retention, and that improving customer retention rate just by 5% can increase an organization's profitability from 25 to 100%. So obviously, improving customer retention can have a big impact on your profits. So creating a prediction-based retention and attrition strategy is really all about understanding which customers are most likely to leave for competitors, and maybe more importantly, why they're planning on leaving. So by using data mining techniques about your customers, you can develop profiles of customers who are who are valuable, and profiles of customers who leave your organization. And indeed, my little use case in a few minutes is going to illustrate this, so you'll get to see it up close and personal. You can develop strategies then to help you keep your valuable customers from leaving, addressing the problem before it becomes a problem. Come back to the satisfaction surveys again. Satisfaction surveys, again, are invaluable in determining not just whether customers are satisfied, but why they're satisfied or not, and uncovering issues that may affect their future loyalty in time to take corrective action. Even customers that cannot be retained have potential value to an organization. So you can understand why they left, and then you can take corrective action for the future. A couple of quick slides before we get to the demo. This is another case study. This is a cable company, and they were worried about customer churn, which is, again, similar to the demo I'm about to give you in a second. They wanted to enable their customer service reps to be able to have a much more instructive conversation with their customers, as opposed to a very stale and crisp one-size-fits-all script. So they developed a solution which included some pop-ups that included information about the customer's contract, as well as cross-sell recommendations which were customized using predictive analytics to determine which offers were most likely to appeal to that customer. You can see the results of that down below. They got a huge improvement in retention, and as well as which they increased their acquisition of new clients within a 2-month period. Two more quick slides, and this is really for those of you who are not part of the introduction, just to frame from a development perspective. As you perform a predictive analytic project, there's a process that we use. It's called the CRISP-DM, or Cross-Industry Standard Practice for Data Mining Methodology. And the takeaway message from this, and all these lovely little arrows, this is a very iterative process, building a model. And you will go back and forward, building the model, understanding the problem, understanding the data, preparing the data. That's no different than what most of us do in our business intelligence world today. Building the model, getting some results, and then starting all over again because we discovered something we didn't know. On the right-hand side, I'm illustrating here the different roles that are involved. Your business analyst, the analyst who's doing the modeling, and then the IT organization. And you can see there's considerable overlap, and there's considerable, all of these steps the analyst is largely involved with overlap between IT and the business analyst. And lastly, and really this is to frame the demo just so that everybody has this in their head, 10 slides ago, I think, we talked about the different data types on the left for customer analytics. On the left-hand side, there's a bunch of data, and what we'll do is combine that data, and then we will perform some analyses. Maybe we will predict who's likely to respond to a campaign, who's likely to churn. Maybe we're going to find out what offer will make a particular customer stay. We will score that. Remember, a predictive model is all about probability. There's no certainty in life. So you will score based on a probability, and then deploy that out to the right-hand side to whether it's marketing or your sales organization for action. And the key to all of this is all that information rolls back in again. It comes back in through your processes again, and you get to leverage the benefit of that. So the takeaway message here is to just remember the structure in your head as we come to the demo part of this presentation, which I'm about to move over now. So bear with me as I make this happen. We all see the screen? Yep. So the story here, and I've got a stream. I'm going to bring this. I just want to bring this over here for a second so you can see this site. I'm hiding it so we can keep the you can see the whole screen as I work with it. But for those of you who are not familiar with Modeler, and I'm not going to go too much in detail here because this may be a repeat for too many folks, but roughly what we are doing is going to build a stream, which is going to be, at the end of the day, the model is a set of activities that constitutes a stream. There are a set of nodes down here. All of those perform a function, and you'll see me using them in a second. And on the right-hand side, we've got some organizational things here that help us keep us organized as we go through the project. I'm going to close this or hide this. Oops, and I always do it the wrong way around, no matter what I do. I've done it wrong again. Sorry. Bear with me while I get this right. I'll just do it this way. Okay, so let me bring up our stream. So the story here is we are a telephone company. We want to understand our churn. We've got data that we have already classified as customers who are churned or not, and we call them here the customers who are current customers or not. We also have some comments that we gathered through our customer service organization, and we want to use some text analytics to pick up some sentiment from those comments and feed that into our model. And we'd like to see what difference that makes to our model. And at the end here, we're going to look at our customers who have churned, and we want to understand that segmentation of those customers. So you can see how we did a segmentation analysis here. So then we will come back and decide what are we going to do with each of these segments so that we can avoid this type of churn in the future. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top here. I'm going to try and avoid doing too many builds so you can have more time to think about the problem than worrying about the details of how Modeler is working. But it is important that you see the data I'm working with, so at points along the way, you'll see me put a table node here and run this table node. And hopefully I can do this. This is where I hang on. We'll go and get my pop-up. All right, Jesse, this is exactly the problem. There it goes. Okay, so you see this pop-up, and I'm going to run this table node. So let me make this bigger so you can all see. You can see the type of data. We have 1,477 records. This is a demo. This is a very small sample set, truly. But for demo purposes, it's plenty good. The attributes of each of these customers, we're looking at how their long-distance usage, their international usage, whether they have dropped calls or not. And all the way to the end here, you can see their gender, marital status, and you can see at the very end, we've classified them whether they're a current customer or not. So if they're a current customer, they've churned, they're gone. So something's happened that this customer has said, I'm done with you, I'm going somewhere else. So this is what we ought to understand. We want to understand, can we predict that first of all? What are the attributes that go into predicting that? And then of those that churned, help me understand the segmentation of that. Are there different classifications of customers that I can then maybe do some sort of different activities for each of those segments? So let me close this up. A type node is really just to get the data in. I think, again, here we go, Jesse. On the type node, what's interesting here is that the current customer at the bottom of the screen, I'm setting it as my target of my model because that's what I want to predict. All of the other attributes are inputs to the model, and the top record is just a record for a system-generated record, so I don't think it's got anything to do with whether a customer is going to churn or not. So I'm going to close that up. The current, this is the first model we're going to build.
And Katrina has multiple monitors open, so that's why when we're opening a dialog, we have to switch screens.
And it's driving me crazy, so I'm going to fix it. So we'll just duplicate the display, so hopefully this will fix this problem. So you don't hear me pause every time as I wait to figure it out. Okay, so hopefully this is better. let us know in the chat window if you're not saying what you're supposed to be saying. Close all of that. All right. So
start sharing one more time, Katrina. Go back to WebEx and say, there you go.
All right. I apologize. This was just driving me crazy.
All right.
And I think stalling the whole thing. So this is the first model. So what I'm doing is using an automated model node. It's a great start for a model. You don't have to actually know anything to run this model. But even for an advanced modeler, you will find that they will use this to get started, to allow them to focus in to get a sense of this data. On the Expert tab, you see all the different types of models that it's going to create. I'm not going to run it. I've done that already here. So what this is the modeling node. This is the output from building a model. And you can see I chose the top 3. And I'm actually going to keep all of them. That's called an ensemble model. You can see there's lots of different metrics associated with each of these models. You can see the overall accuracies are the one, and the area under the curve are the ones that help us understand how well this model is performing. If we take a look, just to go down in underneath the hood a little bit, this is a C5-1 model, wherever it went. I'm still having my challenges. Nope. Here we go. So you can see a C5-1 is a rule model, so it helps. What it essentially does is it creates a set of rules. Now remember, we're trying to ask the question, what are the rules for a customer to churn or not? So we've got a rule for yes, this customer's, in our case, it's a current customer. So this the rule 1 is for a yes, so this customer's a current customer. Well, they don't have long distance usage is greater than 0. They do have some small amount of international usage. Person's older than 29 and a male. So this is a current customer. I go to the further down. Where is it gone? Here it is. I don't understand.
The screen's a little too small right now, so I think that's...
So if I look at the no, on the no side, so let's take just one example. Very straightforwardly, if I don't have long distance usage, this is not a current customer. So there's some data and information in here that these rules are sharing with or helping us understand why a customer might churn or not. But we're going to, hopefully if I can get my screen to actually do what it's supposed to do here. Okay. Clearly I've been pressing a few buttons. So to analyze this model, we can look and see how well do we do. Remember, we already scored these customers of whether they're current customers or not. So I'm going to double click on this analysis node, and then this analysis node is essentially going to compare the results of what the model created versus what we've already scored in our history. So I'm going to run that thing, and so very quickly you see we have 87.14% success here. So we're doing a good job with the attributes that we have, predicting whether a customer is a current customer or not. What we want to know is by adding text, sentiment text in here, does that actually help anything or not? Now, I will remind you again, this is a demo. We have a small volume of data, but I'm trying to help you understand the kind of the steps in this process and the considerations that you might have in building such a model. So we've gone through the path of looking at the data, building a model, predicting whether a customer is current or not. I'm going to take a slight side step here and look at the text data. So we're going to use text analytics. But first of all, again, it's always good to know the data. One of the steps of CRISP DM is to understand the data you have. So let's take a look. So you see, we've got a bunch of IDs and a bunch of comments. And if I scroll down a bit, we can see, I marked one this morning I thought was interesting, 120. He hates his phone. The sentiment for this particular customer is pretty clear. Well, if I move down to 127, I think that particular customer wants to come in and buy more stuff. So we've got kind of mixed content in here for each one of these customers. So our purpose here is to do some text analytics on this first, and then merge that analysis back into our model to see can we get some improvement on our prediction of whether our customer is current or not. Is the sentiment going to add any more value to that analysis? So I'm going to give you the quick overview of text analytics. This is a complicated topic, so I'm hoping it's coming. So I'm going to try and give you the kind of a frame to think about rather than go too deep. Here it is. A couple of things to look on this node. We're looking at comments. We could pull our data in from lots of documents, so we've made this simple for our demo purposes, but more often than not, you will be pulling data in from documents. Now, this screen tells us that we can build our model interactively, and I'm going to do that. I want you to just come down here and look at the resources, because if you think about text analytics and you think about all those comments that we saw, what we're going to try and do is extract information out of all of those words. So I'm going to leverage what's called a text analysis package, and I'll load this here so you can see. And these are packages that come with SPSS Modeler that IBM have built. And the one that I'm particularly interested in here is customer satisfaction, because I want to get sentiment from these customers, how they're feeling about our products and our services. There are different views of this. We can look for positive emotions, opinions, negative opinions, or mixed. I'm going to choose mixed here. And what that's doing is going to build a library of, think of it as words that are associated with this particular topic of customer satisfaction. I'm going to run this thing, and we're going to open an interactive workbench that you'll see in a second. And I'm going to take you through pieces of this so that you can get to see, at least in structure, how text analytics builds the categories that we need to extract the information from the comments that we can feed into our model. So it's doing its analysis for now, the text link analysis. It'll come up in a second, and then I'm going to show you a few screens. So here we go. So I want to bring you first to the resource editor. And if you remember, we chose the customer satisfaction and opinions. And you can see in here there are a bunch of libraries. And all of these libraries have a bunch of interesting information. So let's look at opinions. We've got every variation of positive and negative opinions that you can think of, and indeed some uncertain ones. Down here we've got a bunch of what they call targets, and these are words or combinations of words that we will be relating back up into these concepts. So let me find a word that we might all identify with. We're thinking about negative opinions, something's wrong. And maybe we find out we pull up our negative opinions. I'll organize this back to front. So you can see, here's the word wrong. So wrong is a negative type. And you remember, keep this term type. We're going to be typing the text, and we're going to pull concepts out from these targets and create concepts. And from these concepts and types, we're going to build categories that we will bring into our model. I don't want to say anything more about that. As I said, this could be a very long webinar in its own right. But I wanted to give you the context of pulling these words out, that are contained within our comments. If I move over to the categories and concepts place, this is already built as part of the early analysis. You can see we've got a bunch of concepts here and a bunch of types. And that ties back to those targets and types that we talked about earlier. If I find the word wrong and hover over it, you can see the underlying terms that we saw earlier that are contained within our text. And indeed, I can display, you can see on the display here the comments. These are the comments from that CSV file that I pulled in. And indeed, over here, you can do the same thing here. You can display here. Actually, you should probably score this first. So we can score where do we see general dissatisfaction appearing across all of our comments. And so they're all scored. And we can display a bar chart that shows all the different variations and where these things appear, because there's lots of overlap, right? Negative, the word wrong probably appears in many of these. So let's hopefully give you some idea of pulling these different concepts and types, building categories, and now we're going to build a model, which I have previously done, but I'm going to show you the results of that so that you can see what that looks like. You know, all of that information, what does it actually look like? It's hard to see how all those words turn into anything useful. So very straightforwardly, I'm going to run this table so you, again, just to see this output. It'll take a second or two because now it's pulling in all of these categories. And you'll find the categories are either a positive or a negative, true and false, whether that particular comment had that category or not. And that's what we're pulling out. So here we go across. Look, we have our ID and our comments, but now we've got a bunch of other fields you can see. Some of them are false, some of them are true. And so that data is what we're going to bring into our model. Now it's time to merge all of this. And so I'm now merging the output from my earlier customer churn data with my comments. And I'm going to filter it. I'm going to filter out information that I didn't think was relevant, the previous model, because I want to use the new model. I'm typing that again, so those categories are now all understood by the model. And again, I'm going to build a model. So now I'm pulling in a model that has got not only the data from the customer churn data, but now all of those categories. And I want to build a model to see what difference does that make. You'll be glad to know I've already built that model. So this golden nugget, as it's called, tells me the models that I built. Very similar model, very similar sort of results, and the analysis will give us help us see the difference. You can see we got some improvement. We didn't get huge improvement. That wouldn't be a surprise with the size of a data set. We really would probably need to add in a lot more data and a lot more commentary data to get much more of an impact, but it did make an impact, and I think this is the sentiment, the impact of adding a sentiment analysis here to give us a much more complete view of our picture, as we talked about earlier. Now, the last segment here, no pun intended, is to talk about a segmentation. So I've taken a couple of steps here. The select node, what I've done here is selected out those customers that are not customers anymore, because I really want to understand the attributes of this, how I could segment those, and is there something that I should be doing for different segments of those customers. I'm using what's called a clustering model, so it allows me to build a segmentation, and there's a couple of different types of clustering model types contained within Modeler. This is an automated node, so it'll choose the best one. I've already done it in the interest of time, and it's chosen this one, the k-means, and it's chosen a number of 5 clusters, so it's divided my set of customers who have left us into five segments. So let's take a look at those segments. So I'll try and make the screen bigger so we can, well, I'll try and make the screen bigger. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, so this tells us our 5 clusters, the size, there's a nice distribution among them. This is telling me a little bit how well my segmentation analysis is done. You can see it's poor. This is a metric, a silhouette measure, which is a metric of how well these segments are separated from each other. Ideally, you would want this to be further up so they're better separated. It's good enough for our demo purposes, and I think well, assuming I can keep my screen in order. There's that. Let's bring up the clusters. What I'm going to do now is to choose these clusters and show you, there's a very nice visualization of these clusters that I think actually really helps you think about this type of data. Now you can see, here's our clusters. And it's interesting to note, these are the customers now who've left. So first of all, they're mostly female. So there's something interesting about that. Generally speaking, cluster 2 or cluster 1 has they're car owners, the rest are not. Some of them, cluster 2 is characterized to have an international discount, so there's something interesting there. And the billing types, marital status, there's one group that is single. So, and here's the age groups. So this gives you some idea of the different combinations of folks that are in these segments. And so now the exercise would be to go back and understand, how do we target that group differently? How do we learn from this? These folks have learned. If you remember back to the retention slide, how do we retain these customers? These guys have left. So we need to learn from their attributes and why they've left. Adding a survey here might be an interesting thing to do to understand why they left also. A last part of that analysis would be to label these clusters, if you like, and I've done this, so I create some names for them and I output them to a table, because you may want to pull that data. If we go all the way across, I have characterized these segments so they're labeled by some generic terms, and I may want to bring these back into my Cognos environment and create a report that somebody's going to act upon. So that's the end of the demo section. My goal here was to take you through the steps to create a predictive model to predict whether a customer is churned or not, add some text analytics to give you a view of what it means to add sentiment, create that model again to see the impact of the model, and then finally to create a segmentation. I can hopefully successfully come back to the slides. Legs are there. Somehow or other, I always seem to have a virus scanner going when I don't want to. So to summarize, what's the benefit of a customer analytics solution? We were talking about acquiring customers, growing customers, and retaining customers. We've looked at our customer from a 360-degree view. We saw how important it is to consider the sentiment and attitudinal data as well as interactive data. We need to optimize our interactions with our customers by making sure we understand the type of the customer, the segmentation of that, so that when we market to them, we're marketing the right product at the right place at the right time. Okay. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to my eminent colleague Jesse here to address some questions and answers, hopefully.
All right. So, Katrina, the first question is around Netezza. Looks like a Netezza customer that wants to know about how SPSS, how a model like this would work with a big data product like Netezza. Can you briefly talk to that?
I can briefly talk to that, and I certainly to get some further literature to help.
And we only have 2 more minutes, so let's just take this question. We'll follow up with any other questions with email after the fact. So feel free to continue submitting questions. We'll respond via email for any additional questions. Go ahead.
Certainly Netezza, I'd like to say it's designed for predictive analytics. I'm not sure that's actually a true statement, but certainly the data in it is absolutely sitting there ready for predictive analytics. And it does have included within it some of these modeler type models. SPSS Modeler extends that footprint of models available much to a broader set, but there are models built into Netezza, and you can pull data in from Netezza, and you can send data back out to it. That's contained within the product, in the SPSS Modeler product itself.
Great. All right. Well, it's just about 1 o'clock. We're going to get things wrapped up here. So thanks everyone for attending today, and we'll have another webinar in our Predictive Analytics series on operational analytics in the coming months. So stay tuned for that. And again, this will be available for playback. We should have an email out by Monday with that URL. All right. If anyone else has any additional questions, again, please continue to ask them via the chat window or send us an email directly. And thank you very much for attending.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.